Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. I've got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten. It's the Power Rankings basketball episode. So, I got my guy, Casual Big Ten, Kent, with me to talk about it all. Kent, how we doing today?
With my favorite day of the week, 100%. Like, usually people hate waking up on Mondays, but for me, I'm like, let's go, dude. I get to hang out with JR for like an hour, talk about Big Ten basketball and judge other people's college basketball teams. Is great, man. I love it. I'm so happy to be here, dude. Really excited. Getting really exciting time of the year, too, for this type of stuff. It's starting to really shake itself out, and we're finding out who's legit and who's not. Kind of, I guess. I don't
I was
know.
going to
Are
say,
we
kind of.
finding anything out?
All the teams that I didn't think were legit are now beating the teams that are legit.
Yeah.
You got Minnesota taking down Oregon. You got Ohio State beating Purdue. Who else was out there? You got Maryland absolutely destroying Illinois. Like, all these teams that I thought were like, oh yeah, you're a really good team, and you're not gonna have that hard of a time. It's like, well, here we go. So, but when Micah Parrish turns into LeBron James for a game, that's just kind of what you get. You get a team
Yeah.
that shouldn't win, take down another team. And who did I compare? I was on Locked On Illini this morning talking to Sonny about the power rankings. Who did I compare Braden Smith to that game? I forget who it was, but
I
it was
saw
not like
I
the
saw a
early stuff.
CP3 comparison. Like somebody did a side by side of their college stats, and apparently they're like the same player. So expect that type of career for Braden Smith going forward, I guess. Dude, he was unreal in the Michigan game though. Like,
Oh yeah, he doesn't have two bad games twice. He wasn't
no,
gonna let that happen.
no,
And we
like,
said that. We said that on the Friday show.
and that was a like everything about. By the way, can you delete Friday's show? Because everything I said
No,
was like completely
sorry.
wrong. Please, can you delete it? I said that Brooks Barnheiser was player of the year at this point, and then like he lays an egg yesterday, and Braden Smith plays the best game of his life. It seemed like. And then I said Michigan was going to beat Purdue. They lost by like a thousand, I think it was at Mackey. So I basically don't know anything that I'm talking about at all, which is like par for the course. But I just feel like you can't confidently say anything about what's going to happen in the future anymore at all when it comes to
Yeah.
this type of stuff.
Yeah, no, this is Big Ten basketball, right? Like
Yeah.
you can think you have it figured out, and then 1 week happens, you just throw your hands up in the air. You're like, nothing makes sense anymore. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. All right, let's get to some comments. See who's here. John says, "I haven't been this down bad in a while. Getting beat at home by Kevin effing Willard is inexcusable." Sorry, John. Yeah, that was interesting. I think IU should have won that game at the end, but Mike Woodson decided not to call a play. So I don't I don't know what to do for you there. So I'm sorry, John.
I
My
didn't know if
in-laws,
John
if
was
it
a
helps you at all, they're very upset as well.
I didn't know if John was an Indiana fan or an Illinois fan just based on that comment alone, because it could have been either one.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. All the I schools are struggling. Iowa losing at home to Minnesota, Illinois, and Indiana getting beat by Kevin Willard. Yeah, not good for the I schools. Um, Philip says Kent is being demoted further down now. You have Maryland top 5. I think that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, he's I think he's more referring to where I have Illinois, which like they are
Well,
in
yeah,
my
that too.
replies probably.
The combination of Maryland ahead of Illinois, like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
You're gonna
fine.
get on Phil's bad side there.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment from Philip. I kind of expected that, but it is what it is. Comes with it.
Yes, and I agree. I agree, Brian. They should have won that. They should have won that one at the end. Russ, I'm having a hard time deciphering here. Braden is 2L2Q. Can you help me out here,
Too
Kent?
legit to quit.
Okay, there we go. All right. Yeah. All right. I knew it was something like that. All right. Very good. Let's see who else is here. Um, Russ says Michigan got introduced to post. I wouldn't say Michigan did. I feel like they probably know. Dusty May got introduced to post loss Braden and Mackey. Not a great combination for the Wolverines to deal with. Yeah, that like we said on the Friday show, you're not going to win too many times after post bad game Braden. So and then Fisherman now 2025 Natty Champ says Junie going for 25 plus tonight. Listen, if he gets that 3-point shot going, he can go for 25 plus any night if he shoots from three the way he can. So I think
I'm
he
sorry,
has made a
who is he
3-pointer.
talking about?
John Mobley Jr. for Ohio State.
Okay.
Yeah, they call him Junie. I hate when players have nicknames though because I never know what to call them when I write about them because it's like, do I call him John Mobley Jr.? Do I call him Junie?
Yeah.
Typically, I do something in between.
Do I
So,
call him Parker Fox? Do I call him the GOAT? Like, you just never really know, right?
yeah. Let's talk about this really fast. So Trey Donaldson, Russ is saying, how does Trey Donaldson's comments feel before taking on Mackey? Think he feels different now. Why do players do this? Why do players make comments about the opposed? Like,
I
just
didn't
give.
see this.
He said something about like Mackey is quiet or something like that. I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something like taking on Mackey and said something about him not, being super loud. Russ, if you have the exact quote, put it in the comments. But there was something like that, and I'm just like, why? Like, why does anybody do this? Just go and play. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me why they do that, but it is what it is. So
Yeah,
um,
he just speaking on his game alone, like I feel like the outcome was not going to be different. Purdue was definitely going to win that game, but I think we could have got a little bit better of a game if he was able to stay in the game in the first half, because once he went out, it's when Purdue really started to like pull away. And when he came back in, I think there was probably 7 or 8 minutes left, and he got a bucket real quick, and then Michigan scored a couple points, but it was like way too late. And then the second half basically just stayed as it was. So I actually thought he played okay, but we've talked about this before, man. Like, he has to have the ball in his hands more if Michigan's going to be successful. It can't be Danny Wolf always turning the ball over. Like, Trey's not going to turn it over as much. I think that he should have the ball for a longer period of time if Michigan's going to have success. That's my assessment of what was part of the problem in that Purdue game.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it for a few weeks now. Like Trey Donaldson needs to be your guy who brings the ball up the court, and then you need to run action for Danny Wolf to get him the ball, and then you need to be running quick screen game for Danny Wolf with Vlad Golden. Whether you're going to Vlad Golden or not, you need to be running things quicker with Danny Wolf. There's too much standing. There's too much allowing things to process around him. I think Trey Donaldson is that one who can kind of allow the offense to run, but Danny Wolf, you just need to get him the ball and let him work right away. So that's kind of
Yeah, when Danny Wolf dribbles more than 4 times in a possession, there's like, I wonder what the percentages are, but I would guess there's like a 75% unsuccess rate when
yeah.
he's taking too many dribbles. It just seems like things just don't work when that happens.
Yeah.
But
And he was also pressing bad in that game. I mean, there was some like cross court passes that he was trying to make, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
yeah,
so that was part of the reason too. Obviously, Purdue played a good game. I'm not taking anything away from Purdue.
yeah,
Great game by them, but they also put Danny Wolf in that position where he felt like he was pressing as much as he was. So. All right. I think Philip has a comment here that is good to get us started. He said, can't have Michigan ahead of Illinois. He said Wisconsin as well. So I'll give my thought process. I don't even know if we need to talk about Michigan State. Michigan State, you're good. You've won like, 12 straight games. You're undefeated in the Big Ten. You're number one in the power rankings. Do you have any other thoughts on Michigan State before we move on from them?
oh no, they're definitely number one. Like, that was the easy part. I think them and Purdue like was the easy end of that. Like, I could even see, some Purdue fans, if I was like a diehard Purdue fan, I could see an argument for like, we're better than Michigan State on a neutral,
Not
just
after
because
losing
of,
to Ohio State, though.
but yeah, I guess that would be the like end of the
Yeah.
conversation right there, right?
Yeah,
And
that's my.
and actually, and Penn State, to be honest, because Penn State's been real bad lately. But
Yeah,
that
but
one was on the road.
Penn State happened so long ago,
Yeah.
though, that it feels like they've made adjustments and they've corrected things, so I could entertain that argument. But yeah, the Ohio State thing, like, yeah, that's my main thing.
Yeah. So I think 1 and 2 are pretty solidified. There's no real argument there. So
Yeah. Here we go. Here's the comment. Coming up north, everybody talks about Mackey. Down south, we talk about arenas, how everybody does up here. I guess it's like a big deal, question mark. I haven't really looked into it like that. Not trying to be disrespectful or anything. I haven't, I don't even know. Yeah, I'd just say if you don't know, you just say, I haven't really looked at it much. But I
yeah, I
don't
don't
know.
think he said
It's
anything.
not the worst quote in the world, but it's also like, probably just don't speak on it.
Yeah, I don't
Because
know what the
those Purdue
context
fans are
was.
going to hear that and they're gonna do whatever they can to use that as ammo, which they should.
Yeah, I have no reason to defend Trey Donaldson, but just after you read that, though, it doesn't sound like he said anything bad. Like, it's just like he doesn't care to really talk about it, and he doesn't really research the arena, so
Yeah,
it's not a big
yeah.
deal to
But that's what I'm
him.
saying, though. Purdue, any fan base is going to take that and be like, "Oh, you don't think we're loud? Well then we'll be loud." I mean, that's just what fan bases do, and I love it.
Yeah,
That's one of the great things about college sports. So,
yeah,
all right. Let's see. Okay, Philip's comment. That's right. We
yeah,
were at Illinois. So can't have Michigan ahead of Illinois. So we'll talk about Purdue in a second. Let's talk about this conundrum with Illinois first. So I have Illinois up at third. My reasoning for that is I felt like nobody really did anything this week to really solidify themselves over Illinois. Only team that was Maryland. But then Maryland played Indiana, and it's like, yeah, you won, but you shouldn't have won. So can I really move Maryland up into my top three? Like I don't think Maryland is that good of a team. I think Illinois is, but they've also not shown it. There's some excuses and stuff like that that can be made for Illinois, and I don't say that in a derogatory way. I think a lot of teams can make excuses for a lot of things, but at the same time, like yes, Maryland destroyed Illinois. I think there were other circumstances that led to that helped them out in that situation, but you still got to give credit to Maryland. But just like you did, like you didn't move Maryland up above Wisconsin and Michigan because at the end of the day, I don't think Maryland is better than those teams. And if we want to say, well, Maryland beat Illinois, it's like, okay, well, just last week Northwestern beat Maryland. So are we really going to uphold to that kind of stuff? So I mean, give us your thoughts on moving Illinois down to outside the top five.
yeah. I hate to do it. I think that the people that I see on Twitter right now in my replies mainly have good points. Like when they're at full strength, they are arguably the best team in the conference. I don't even know if it's arguable. They might be the best team in the conference. And when they're clicking, they're my favorite team to watch. They play the best basketball when everyone's playing well. The problem is it hasn't happened that much this season. I don't feel like they don't always have guys healthy, and they don't always have guys that stay out of foul trouble, or they don't always have guys that play good games. Like Morez Johnson in the Maryland game, you could tell me that he didn't play in that game, and then yesterday he looked like one of the best players in the conference. So, yeah, when they're at full strength and everyone's playing really well, Illinois is one of the best teams in the conference. So, my thought process of it was I actually started with Wisconsin because that's who I really wanted to put at 3, because I think that they're playing really well right now. I know they have a loss this week as well, but like you just said, everybody basically does. And I looked at Wisconsin and I said, well, Michigan came to Wisconsin and beat them already. And Michigan's loss this week, although it was very bad and they got blown out and embarrassed, it was to Purdue, who I am saying is the number 2 team in the conference. So I just kept Michigan where they were because of those reasons. And I wanted Wisconsin to be the next team, so I put them at 4. And then Maryland beat Illinois, so I put Maryland in front of Illinois. And that was my whole thought process of the top 6. And, I don't know if you can say you can't have Michigan in front of Illinois right now. Like, what would be the argument for Illinois to be like? So for you, for example, why do you think that Illinois is in front of Michigan right now? Like, Michigan's loss is bad to Minnesota. I get that. And it was a blowout against Purdue. They were both on the road. One was a little fluky. I think that Michigan should have won that game. It was one of their worst games of the season. And then their second one was the Purdue game, I think, which we just talked about. Purdue's not going to lose after a loss. And it was at Mackey. It was a really good environment. They just played really well. So their 2 losses, I feel like, are less embarrassing, I guess, for lack of a better term, than Illinois. Like they got embarrassed by a team that had not won a single road game in Maryland. Like they got absolutely embarrassed. They got punished. They got bodied. Something I didn't see would happen from Illinois this year. So that's why I felt like I had to move them down, like away from that top 3 after that game. And I get it. What's his name? Ivisic. Sorry. He was out. So obviously there's going to be some stuff down low that's going to be available for a team like Maryland, who has 2 really good post players. But I tweeted about this. If you're a top 15 team, you're arguing that you're a top 10 team in the country or whatever you think that you are if you're an Illinois fan, at some point pride has to kick in and say they're not going to get points in the paint anymore. Like, we're going to figure something out, and they never did. the whole game, and it was at home. So that's why I felt like I had to bump them way down below Maryland, because that was the team that beat them. Wisconsin, who's really hot, and then, like I said, Michigan ahead of Wisconsin because they went to Madison and won that game.
Yeah. So Michigan for me, I've not seen anything lately to propel them, right? I've seen games to kind of keep them, where they are, beating Northwestern, beating Washington, but the loss at Minnesota, it's at Minnesota, and Minnesota's playing hot right now. They're doing a good job. So I don't want to take too much from that. But this is also a Minnesota team that has not been good this season. So beating Michigan kind of, helped ramp that up, and they've won 3 straight with that win. And then, just the poor game against Purdue. If that was a closer game, I'd probably, would think differently about maybe moving them up. I'm not somebody that sees an L and just immediately is like, oh, you have to move them down. If it was a close game, if it was, they played really well, maybe I'm thinking differently. But, just the way they got blown out, it's like, okay, I know Illinois got blown out too, but like Illinois also had some other stuff going on. Not to make excuses for them. I get it. I'm not trying to do that. But I think if you're a college basketball fan, you can you can tell there's a difference between, hey, we were fully healthy going up against Purdue at Mackey, and we just lost our starting center to mono, and we have to start a freshman, and Maryland has probably the best big combo in the Big Ten, if not for Michigan. It's kind of like Maryland and Michigan right now with the best big man combo with what they're doing. So that's kind of my thought process with Michigan. And then Wisconsin, what did they do this week to prove they're over Illinois? They beat who'd they beat? They beat somebody of no consequence. Nebraska. That's right. And Nebraska's on a 5-game losing streak right now. And then they lost to UCLA. And I know UCLA, got back after that Iowa win and stuff, but still, if you're Wisconsin, UCLA is a game you should win, especially with the way you've been playing right now. So
that was at UCLA though, right? Or no?
Yes, I believe it was at UCLA.
I think that's why I didn't knock them down too far from that. I looked at Wisconsin, and I think I'm remembering this correctly, but they were close in that game, and it was on the road. And then every game that they haven't been blown out yet. That's another thing. And they've really taken care of business at home.
Marquette.
I don't know what the rest of their schedule is without pulling it up, but I would be surprised if Wisconsin loses a game at home this year. Unless
Center is really good.
Yeah, so I think I just punished them less for losing the UCLA game because it was on the road, and I think that UCLA is still a very good team. I have them at number 7, so I didn't give them, in a close game on the road, I didn't really punish them for that as much as it sounds like maybe you did. So that's why I felt like that they still deserve to be a little bit higher this week.
Russ is giving us his picks if he was on the midseason awards. So you're talking about Player of the Year, Dustin Garcia, and Ken, you'll love this. 6th Man of the Year, Parker Fox. Unfortunately, Parker Fox was not eligible because he has played one more than 50% of his games he started, so he wasn't eligible. At least.
What about now though? Because he didn't start. He didn't start yesterday, I don't think. So maybe he is eligible now.
I think you have to be less than 50%.
Okay, so after the next game, if he doesn't start, then.
Yeah, let me check really fast, but I think that's.
I did take him though, Russ, on Friday when we did the awards part. I still said Parker Fox, even though he wasn't eligible, because I can do that because I'm not actually voting. Who gets the vote for that? I feel like we deserve votes for that stuff.
He's still over 50%. He's played in 20 games and he started 11. So.
Okay, so we got 2 more games until he's eligible. So we'll just pencil him in right now.
Yeah.
And then as long as watch Ben Johnson start inserting him into the starting lineup. He had a double-double yesterday.
Yeah.
Or 2 days ago, whatever it was. I can't remember now. My days are all meshed together.
Yeah, no, I mean, Minnesota's playing good ball right now. I don't really want to pivot and talk to them yet. We will pivot and talk to them here soon, but I want to talk about some of the next teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how you and I react to Illinois going forward. I'm keeping them a little bit higher up there. You're knocking them down a little bit more. It's going to be really interesting. I look forward to continuing to have those discussions. Okay. UCLA.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is kind of what I just pulled up their schedule, what I was mentioning about Wisconsin. It's a 2-point loss at UCLA. So they're right in that game. And then the rest of their games, like you got to go all the way back to December 10th was the last time that they lost. I mean, they're one of the hottest teams right now, Wisconsin I'm talking about. And yeah, just like blowing people out at home. I guess they only beat Ohio State by 2 at home. But I'm just really impressed with Wisconsin. I felt like each week I come on here and I say, maybe I should have had Wisconsin higher. Maybe I should have had them higher. Well, this week, they had a pretty good week. They had a 2-point loss at a tough UCLA team, and then they blew Nebraska's doors off yesterday. So I still feel like they're showing what they can be. Like, I think that Wisconsin could be a double bye Big Ten tournament team. So I think they should be within that top 4 if I think that they're going to be on that seed line in a few weeks.
So do you think that Wisconsin should be above Michigan then? Because that's what I did.
So, like I said, the only reason I didn't put them in front of Michigan is because Michigan was a team that I think the only team that's gone to Wisconsin and beat them. So that's like a kind of a notch on Michigan's belt right now. Like, we can go win on the road, just not this week, just not at Mackey.
Right. Philip is saying, who's Wisconsin beat? I mean, USC and Ohio State are both quad 1 games. You could kind of say the same thing with Illinois ever since Oregon. I definitely think you give them credit for that Oregon game, but I don't want to latch onto that game for so long. Like Illinois, like they won at Indiana, and that was a huge win, and that's a quad 1 game. But Wisconsin and their streak in January has the same number of quad 1 wins as Illinois does. So, like.
Yeah,
I get it. Like I was gonna bring that up to you as well. Like, well, who is Wisconsin beat? But it's like there's not really anybody in the Big Ten that's like notching like super big wins. Maryland, Purdue, like those are pretty much the bigger wins. Missouri neutral court. Yeah, I mean, sure. I was talking more in conference play in January, but yeah, sure.
As an Illinois fan, if you're asking me who Wisconsin beat, you can start and end it with USC. Like USC came to Illinois and won, and Wisconsin went out to USC and beat them by a lot, by the way, 84-69. So that's who they beat. That proves that they should be ahead of Illinois. That just happened like within the last 2 weeks, both of those games. USC came to Illinois, won. Wisconsin went to USC and won. So for me, it's like, how can you argue that Illinois is ahead of Wisconsin? I don't get that. I don't know. There's so many teams that have beat. Like when you're talking about the similar competition, there's so much parity within this league. When you take Michigan State and Purdue out of the equation, I feel like you can make an argument for anybody. So for Illinois, yeah, they have some good wins, but so does Wisconsin. I think like USC is a good win. I think, especially on the road.
Yeah, I mean Illinois did beat Wisconsin, but that was a while ago. That was like the beginning of December. So yeah, good discussion though. I have Illinois over Wisconsin, I have Illinois over Wisconsin, and I think there's just a lot of subpar basketball being played, a lot of good basketball being played. It's hard to hard to shuffle it all together and come out with a ranking system, but that's what we're doing for you. That's why I like that I have Kent here with me, so you get kind of the varying opinions. You got me sticking up for Illinois. You got Kent looking at the other stuff of Illinois a little bit. I like it.
Do you think that just one more thing?
One more thing, and then we got to move on.
I'm sorry. Okay, Illinois and Wisconsin. They play on February 18th at Wisconsin. Who do you think wins that game?
Illinois and Wisconsin, February 18th.
At Wisconsin.
Oh boy, that's tough because, like you said, Wisconsin's been so good at home, and that's right after they play Michigan State. But they will be at home. They'll be at home against UCLA, Michigan State, and then they'll go at Wisconsin. I mean, if I had to choose right now, I'd probably say Wisconsin, just because I don't know if Avicic is back. But if Avicic is back and he's been back for a game or two, then I might lean Illinois. But I think Wisconsin, they're gonna have a better time if Illinois doesn't have Avicic, or if Marissa Johnson gets better. I mean, he looked good against Northwestern, so
he looked really good.
But Northwestern also doesn't really have. I mean, no disrespect to Matthew Nicholson, but Northwestern doesn't really have a big man. So
agree.
But, all right, Moving on. Okay, UCLA, Oregon, USC is who you have, in Ohio State. And then, I'm basically there the same as well. We differentiate on Ohio State and USC, but that's fine. I don't think it needs to be a big talking point there. Any comments on those next four teams that you have?
Yeah, I saw that flip flop difference right before we started recording, and I was like, did I mess that up, or I guess it doesn't really matter. Like you said, I think you can go either way on that 9 and 10 spot. So yeah, I agree. It doesn't really need to be dove into.
Did you have it different on your power rankings? Did I get it wrong?
No. I'm saying like USC, I have them at 9, and you have
Oh,
Ohio
okay.
State at 9. Just like I don't think that you could go either
Yeah.
way on that. I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so then the next four that we kind of have there are Minnesota, Iowa, Northwestern, Indiana. I'm giving a little bit more credit to Indiana. You're giving a lot more credit to Minnesota for what they've done lately. I'm still giving some more credit to Northwestern. You have Northwestern a little bit further down. Walk me through those four and what your thought process is there.
I think with Minnesota, it's just like what they've done the last 2 weeks. Like one of the hottest teams. I feel like they beat Michigan. That just catapulted them. They go on the road. They beat Iowa. They come back home, and I forgot who they just played this weekend, but they got another win at home. Oregon. So 2 top
Yeah,
25
Oregon.
wins in like the last 2 weeks. I feel like it's really hard for me. Like for me, I was like, I don't know how many teams in the bottom half of the conference can say that they got 2 top 25 wins this month. So I just felt like I had to give some respect to Minnesota just for that, because they're playing really well, man. Like really fun to watch too. Like that's another thing. I'm just like, who's really fun to watch for me? I got to put them. I almost start where I think that they should be right now, and I started with Minnesota at 10, and I thought that Ohio State and, like I said, USC should be ahead of them, and then I could make an argument for them to be in front of any other team. Like Iowa is where I went next, and I was like, well, Minnesota just went to Iowa, beat them, so I'm going to put them in front of that, and then just worked my way down from there. And I felt like pretty confident that at this moment, Minnesota on a neutral could beat anybody that I have behind them.
Yeah. I mean, putting Minnesota at 14th, like you're definitely right. They beat Iowa. Indiana is not looking good right now, so I can definitely see them over them. I still think Northwestern is better than Minnesota, so but they've also had a tough week as well. What'd they go? They beat Indiana and then they lost at Illinois. But I don't want to dock Northwestern too much for losing at Illinois. Like I know Illinois doesn't have a VSIC, but I don't want to dock them too much for that. And they beat Indiana, so I'm going to put them over Indiana, which you have them over Indiana too. I'm not saying you don't.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I don't have a
and
problem with
Philip,
that. Like I see
that
what
was
you're
where I was
saying
going
there.
to go
Like
next. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't disagree with you on that. I think Northwestern's still a really good team. Like just things have not, like, it's been a year for them. It just feels like things have not fallen their way for whatever reason, with all the close games that they lost. And then, they have been blown out twice now. Like when they play a really top tier team, it feels like they're not really in the game anymore. Like I used to think that they could compete with anyone, but then I saw the Michigan State game and I saw the Illinois game, and it's like, I don't know if they're near that top anymore. So it was tough for me to even put them up there. So, and I know Minnesota's been blown out a couple times too, but there's a little bit of me that says, what's going on actually right now? Like what's the scope of the conference right at this moment? And at this moment, Minnesota's just playing so well. So I just gave them a little bit more credit for that.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree. All right. So Iowa. Philip's asking why is Iowa getting respected? They did.
Are they?
They did have a past couple games. What are they, of their last four, something like that? They've lost, which not great for Iowa. I actually just kept them like put in my rankings because they did have the win over Penn State, and I know there's a lot of people that say Penn State isn't good and stuff like that. They're still pretty high in like KenPom and stuff like that. It's just been a little bit of a tough stretch for Penn State, so I that is a hard because I try not to jump too much into like the narratives of like, oh well, Penn State is awful now. It's like, well, Penn State did beat Purdue, so and I get it. Purdue was different than they are now, but like that's still a Braden Smith team, and they didn't just beat them; like they beat them good. So like Iowa being able to bounce back and get one against Penn State, maybe it's not the most impressive thing in the world, but for me, I still kind of got to give them a little bit. So that's kind of where I do the dance with Minnesota and Iowa. It's like Iowa, they got a, good, quote unquote, good win. When you look at like quad two, but then they also lost to Minnesota. So, you could definitely make a case for I should have Iowa lower, at the very least under Minnesota. But I guess I'm trying not to overreact to Minnesota right now. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that that's fair. I like to overreact, especially when it comes to Minnesota. I just love them so much. But in retrospect, I think that if I was going to make one change this week, I might move Northwestern, kind of like what you have, but I would still keep Iowa behind Minnesota and maybe put Northwestern at 11, keep Iowa behind Minnesota and move Iowa down to 13, because like I'm looking at the month that they just had and it's been pretty bad. Like I'm talking about Iowa right now. They beat Nebraska and then beat Penn State this month. And then the other win is Indiana. And then they have 5 losses. So it's like, maybe I am giving them a little bit. Maybe Philip's right. I'm giving them a little bit too much credit for the Indiana win, I guess. I don't know. Penn State, I don't know. That's tough. Yeah. So maybe I should be knocking Iowa down a little bit more. I still think they're better than Indiana, though. Like I think Indiana's playing really bad. So I think that we both got that right, that they're just slightly ahead of Indiana, but not. I don't know, anywhere below 12 and lower, I think I'm not really respecting them, I don't think.
Right. No, I think that makes sense. I do think we need to get into the Indiana conversation. So Indiana, they get blown out by Illinois. What was that, last week? I don't think that was this week. Last week they get blown out by Illinois. They respond by beating Ohio State at Ohio State, and then this week they lose at Northwestern and they lose to Maryland. I feel like Mike Woodson is working really, really hard to bring Malik Reneau back, and I don't think it works. I don't think the lineup with Reneau and Ballo in there together, I feel like Ballo has regressed with Reneau in the lineup, and then when you get Reneau out, Ballo is playing like he has been playing these past few weeks again, and and there's all the drama about Luke Goody sending him back to the handshake line and stuff like that. It honestly looks like to me Mike Woodson forgot to shake their hand. I don't know if he really meant to, but which that might be just as bad either way. But and then Luke Goody, like if I'm Mike Woodson, I'm not benching Luke Goody the rest of the year. That's the dude that looks like he cares more than anybody else out there. And I don't think you can say like, oh, we need a spark plug off the bench. No, you need a spark plug from the jump. Like keep Luke Goody in the game as long as you possibly can, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. I wanted to say one last thing about Iowa, but I just forgot what it was now, so I don't remember. Oh, that was what I was going to say. Iowa did everything they could to lose that Penn State game, by the way. Like, they had a pretty big lead at the end, and Penn State almost came back on them. And if they did, I would have definitely put Iowa like more closer to like 16, I think. But they did hang on to win that game. With Indiana, okay, I want to give Maryland a lot of credit, and here's why. Because the 2 games that Maryland had this week was, if you watched them both, they won the games completely different fashions. And I was actually DMing with John about this because he sent me the lineup that Woodson was putting out there right before the game tipped off with Reneau, and who was the other big that they had start yesterday? It was Mbako, or Ballo, Reneau, and Mbako. So like 3 pretty big guys, right, to start the game. And I think what happened, to give Mike Woodson the tiniest amount of credit that I can possibly give him, is he might have actually watched film on that Illinois game when Maryland like just basically scored 1,000 points in the paint. And he was like, I'm going to put the biggest dudes out there that I possibly can, and I'm not going to let this front court just run us out of our own building. And to Maryland's credit, I thought, and I don't know what the stats are, but just by watching the game, I thought Maryland's guards were the reason that they actually won that Indiana game. I thought they played really well. One of them, I can't remember which one it was, if it was Young or who's the other guard that they have that's really good, Maryland's guard?
Rice. Young,
Rice,
Gillespie.
yes. Okay, I think Rice was the one that hit the 3 that put them ahead at the end. So literally won the game for them was their guard play. So I kind of want to give Maryland more credit because they won 2 pretty important games on the road in 2 different ways. Like the way that they won the games was completely different. So that's another reason why I have them so high. But yeah, with Indiana, it seems like it is only Luke Goody that cares at points. We've been kind of beating this point to death. It's
Yeah, I mean,
entertaining if you're an Indiana hater because you know Mike Woodson is gone and the season really feels like it's over already. But I also do feel bad. I think we were texting about this yesterday with Sonny. Like, you feel bad for a guy like Luke Goody who leaves a really good Illinois team and thinks he's in a good situation over at Indiana, and the season has just completely fallen apart in front of his face. So
yeah,
depends on
yeah. I mean,
how much of an Indiana hater you are, if you're entertained by this or not.
well, there's a lot of them. But hey, they're a football school now, so
True. Did you see I
they're
put the
much
football helmet on the graphic for the Big Ten
yeah,
tournament? Like the predict
yeah.
or for like if the season ended today, I put the football helmet for Indiana's spot.
That's hilarious. I saw that. I also saw Kirk Zanetti at the game yesterday with the with the quarterback. What's his name? Trent. I forget what his last name is. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Yeah, so I felt like this game with Indiana was more about Indiana losing it than it was Maryland winning it. And I don't mean to take anything away from Maryland, but like I just that was kind of the vibe I got from the game. Some of the calls that went certain ways, and then also missing free throws down the stretch. Was it Galloway? I think it was that missed a free throw or two or something like that. Like, just it looked more like that to me. And I don't want to rave too much about like the Trent Green. Thank you, John. I don't want to rave too much about like the effort and stuff like that because there are other guys out there giving effort. Like Miles Rice is a high energy player and does a lot of things, but he's just kind of reckless with his energy, right? And that's kind of why he gets so many foul calls, and that's kind of why he gets himself with trouble and stuff like that. I will say, with you talking about like trying to match bigs and stuff with Maryland, I did get that a little bit with Indiana trying to maybe match what Maryland was doing with, hey, we're going to have Renew and Ballo out there, but like it stagnates your offense so much. The Indiana offense works so much better with Mbako at the 4 and allowing Goody, Leal, Rice, or Galloway, Rice, and Goody, whoever it is, like allowing those guys to roam the perimeter and be out there. It works so much better. And then Leal on defense, like he is energetic. He is a bit reckless at times too, but at the same time, like you kind of take it for what it's worth. It doesn't seem as bad as Rice to me. And I'm not saying Rice is bad at all. It's just, like I said, it's just a little reckless sometimes. But overall, like I get what Woodson is doing. I get he's trying to match, but I think you have such a better offensive advantage with Mbako and Ballo out there as your 4 and 5. But I also know the drama is that Mbako doesn't want to play the 4. So is he trying to, let Mbako play his position he wants to play? Like, I don't know. If that's the case, then it's like, I don't know, dude. Just play the guys where they are to win, because right now you don't have the luxury of losing games.
Yeah.
So.
It's tough for them right now, but like I said, there's a lot of haters out there that are probably loving this. This was kind of the stat that I was talking about, though. Maryland in that Illinois game, they went 3 for 12. They shot 12 3-pointers in that game because they were getting everything inside against Illinois. They turn around the very next game and make 12 3-pointers and shoot 50%. So like that's kind of my point where I'm trying to give Maryland more credit than maybe some people would like to. And I love crapping on Kevin Willard just as much as the next guy, but for him to be able to, and it's not all him that's making the adjustments, but when you go one game and you only shoot 12 3-pointers and then the very next game you make 12 of them, like you switched it up based on what the other team was giving you, and they won both games. So I have to give him credit when it's due, and I'm giving him credit now.
Yeah. I gotta give him credit when it's due. So you're right. Gotta give him credit, especially for those wins. All right. Let's talk bubble race at the bottom of the Big Ten. We got the Big Ten bubble. Which of the 4 bottom teams are going to make it? So you and I are for is the same teams, maybe not the same order, but the same teams: Penn State, Nebraska, Rutgers, and Washington. Penn State, and let's see, right now it's a tie for third last place in the Big Ten. The tie is Penn State, Northwestern, Minnesota, and Rutgers. I think it looks like if Nebraska keeps playing where they are, which sucks for Nebraska fans, I get it, they are probably going to be out of the Big Ten tournament with Washington. I don't see a way that Washington gets into the Big Ten tournament. So really this last spot here is kind of who you're looking at to possibly be there. I think it's probably Rutgers, but Rutgers also has such great talent that it's like they could start playing really well, but they also have a brutal schedule to end the season. I think I think Penn State and Northwestern are safe just because we have seen flashes of them to make me believe they're going to win a few more games to get themselves out of that race. But then Minnesota's there too, and Minnesota is playing really well so far. So are you with me? Do you think it's probably Rutgers that's there, or are you have Penn State at 16th? Like, do you think it's going to be Penn State?
I'm lockstep with you. I couldn't have said that any better myself. I think it's obviously Nebraska and Washington aren't going to be there. They're not going to be involved. And then I think that Penn State, I do have them below Rutgers right now, but I think that team is better than what their record is at this point. Like, we saw them beat Purdue this year. We know that they can be good. So I'd like to think that they're going to be involved in the Big Ten tournament. They're going to win a couple more games, at least enough to stay out of that those bottom three spots. And I do think it's Rutgers. I think that they've been the most inconsistent team. They have the worst losses. They have some impressive wins. They've been in some games that I didn't think that they were going to be in. I keep thinking about that Alabama game. I keep thinking about the Kennesaw State game too, though. So it's like, I think it's Rutgers. I'm right with you on that. The only other team that, even though I have them way up right now, like I said, this is a little bit of like, what have you done for me lately? Why I have Minnesota so high. I would throw them into the conversation if they don't keep up what they're doing right now, which we've seen that they could go right back to what they were like the first part of the Big Ten conference play, like fall right back apart, and then they'll solidify themselves as one of the bottom three. So to me, it's Minnesota or Rutgers, but I lean Rutgers right now with you, I think.
Yeah. I sorry, my mouse was being weird there for a second, and I try to mute myself because right now I just have my pad, and if I if I keep it unmuted, then you're gonna hear me the entire time. I know that would be annoying. So, So I agree. Like, I think Minnesota is probably working themselves out of that, and I think that we've seen enough of Minnesota. Like, to me, here's the difference, and I know that some people hate this kind of stuff because it's not great basketball analysis, but I think it does make a difference. Minnesota brought guys back who do care about Minnesota. Dawson Garcia, Mike Mitchell, and those guys are going to continue to play hard, even if they're in the bottom of the standings. Like, Ben Johnson is going to get those guys to care, and I'm not saying Steve Pikiell can't, but it's just it's different. It's a little different when you're Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper coming into Rutgers for 1 year. You're off to the NBA after this. Like, Dawson Garcia has years to look at with Minnesota, and people might make fun of him and say, like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter. Like, you're going to lose in the Big Ten tournament anyway. But I think it does matter to these players. And Parker Fox is a 6-year senior. Like, he's going to be really working for that. So, and I know there's guys on the Rutgers team that care and everything. I'm not trying to say they don't care. I think that Minnesota has a little bit more extra motivation there than maybe the two stars that really are exactly what makes Rutgers run or not. Like, I think they have a little bit more of that motivation. And then also, too, like I said, Rutgers end of season schedule is just absolutely brutal. They couldn't have dropped certain games this season if they wanted to make the Big Ten tournament.
There's some important games coming up like this week for this exact conversation that we're having. I hate that all the teams aren't involved. I will say that. But leaving 3 teams out does make it really interesting, like coming down the stretch of the season, like who's going to be the last 3 teams? It is a fun discussion point. Minnesota has an absolute lock win coming up this week, though. Like I said, Washington is coming to town. I've been saying that for a month right now. Minnesota's absolutely going to win that game. I feel like I said that a while back and I got scoffed at a little bit, but I think I have everybody on board with me now. I think Minnesota's proven that they are much better than Washington. So they got that for them this week. And then they go to Penn State. So that'll be kind of an important game for, like, if Penn State's going to still like try to keep themselves out of the bottom with a Minnesota team who's right in that conversation coming to town. Penn State has to win that game. That's next week. But some really like important games for both the top and the bottom of the conferences. It makes it more interesting. It makes it like, okay, well, like obviously we care about the top of the conference race. Like, is Michigan State going to stay undefeated? Is Purdue going to like make a run right here and try to go win the conference for the 17th straight year? It feels like. And then, but it also makes the bottom of the conference more interesting too. Like last year, we wouldn't have cared who was at the bottom of the conference because everybody was coming to the Big Ten tournament anyways. Now, it's like, okay, we do still have to pay attention to these games. If they lose this game, they're going to be they're not even coming to Indy this year. So it's interesting. I love it, actually. I love it and
Yeah.
I hate it because I'm going to the Big Ten tournament, so I want to see everybody play. So I hate that part of it, but I love that it makes those games more important. Like you're almost fighting just to get into a tournament, like atmosphere. And also one other side point, my Big Ten tournament tickets are coming from Nebraska, and I'm very concerned that we're not going to get them if they're not involved. Like I hope they already got the tickets. Like I hope the ticket
I
office
didn't
already
even think
has
about
them.
that. I didn't even think about that. Would they not let Nebraska fans have their spots if Nebraska doesn't make it? Yeah, wow,
I
that's
hope that
crazy.
they let them have their spots because that's my spot. I need to be involved in that. I think that they have to, though. I think they have to divvy up the tickets beforehand. I'm hoping. My fingers are really crossed. I still don't know yet for sure. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. All right, good discussion there. I'm totally with you. I think the Big Ten bubble race is going to be so much fun to talk about here as we end it. Because whenever we do power rankings at the bottom, it's just like, so much to not really be able to talk about and stuff like that. But now you are able to talk about it, and I love it. So I want to get to one more thing before we get out of here, and I just clearing something up. So EA commented and said, or in the chat said, JR says he didn't move Maryland above Illinois because Maryland lost to Northwestern. Illinois also lost to Northwestern. Make it make sense. Maryland is easily a top 6 team in the conference. Perhaps I didn't explain myself well enough, and I apologize if I didn't do that, EA. I wasn't saying that Maryland isn't above Illinois because they lost to Northwestern. I was saying I can't use that reasoning of, well, Maryland beat Illinois, so Maryland should be above Illinois. And it was just an example of like, well, Northwestern beat Maryland. So if I'm going to hold to that standard in every area, like in one area, I need to hold to that in other areas. And obviously, I don't have Northwestern above Maryland. So it's not like my reasoning for why, it's just an example of the reason why I don't hold fast to that every single time. Do I do it sometimes? Yeah, sometimes if the teams are really, really close, I most likely will. But like I didn't have Minnesota above Iowa, so I could use that example as well. So it was just an example, and I agree with you, EA. Maryland's the top 6 team. I have them 6, so I totally agree with you there that Maryland's a top 6 team, and these road wins have been impressive for them. Like I said, I still feel like Indiana probably lost that game more than Maryland won it, but that's just my opinion. I can see if somebody argues different. So, Kent, that's all I got. Anything else you want to get to before I get out of here?
I don't think so. I do want to say we could probably have done a whole hour show just discussing Illinois and Maryland. And it might have got more clicks, actually, now that I'm thinking of it, just like Illinois versus Maryland, period. That's the name of the show. And then the last 5 minutes, we just show our power rankings. We don't even talk about it. And I think we might have got more people to tune in just based off that. Like, who's better, Maryland or Illinois? Let's really discuss that. We could have done a whole hour on that probably. But no, I don't have anything else going on. Go listen to Boiler Express. I see Russ in the chat. Go listen to Lockdown Illini. We'll be back maybe Friday. I don't know if I'll be able to be here Friday, but hopefully I can come back Friday, and we'll see what's going on at that point. Really fun time, though, man.
That was hilarious. Right when you said go listen to Boiler Express, Russ's chat comment popped up. I don't know what's in reference to, but he said, please no.
That's bad timing by him. I think
That was really funny. It just pops up on my end. I don't know if it popped up on everybody else's YouTube end, but on my end it did. So, all right, everybody, thanks for watching the Power Rankings episode. We will be back on, or at least I'll be back on Friday. If Kent can be there, great. If not, I'll have somebody else with me. So we'll enjoy it. We'll have a good time. Talking everything Friday, and then we'll be back with another Power Rankings episode on Monday. And get your comments ready. Tell us where we're wrong, and tell us what things should be changed. And be ready to no, Philip. I got a hard out at 11. No 2.5 hours. But we'll go 2.5 hours in the off season with Dylan. Don't worry. So.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do that.
So we'll see you next time, and have a good one.